What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about Canadians currently living here in America and what they think. So today, I want to take a look at this Reddit discussion where somebody asked Canadians currently living in America, how are you feeling right now? And I think this is such a great question. I'm really interested in hearing about what Canadians are thinking, especially the Canadians that are living here in America. So, as an American, I have to say, I've never actually ran into a Canadian here in the United States. So, from my point of view, from my experience, I don't know if it's terribly common for Canadians to live here in the United States. And with everything that's going on between Canada and America, you know, the political tensions, the negative rhetoric, what our government has been doing to Canada and saying. I'm really curious to hear what Canadians living in America are thinking. And if you guys have, I don't know, run for the hills yet or what. So they say, I'm curious to hear how fellow Canadians living in the States are feeling right now with the obvious going on. Are you considering returning to Canada? Wow. I mean, part of me is like, dang, you move your entire life here to America. I hope you've been having a good time. Up until, I don't know, like 4 months ago or something, right? And to just have to uproot your whole life again and move out of, maybe quit your job or sell your home or and move back to Canada. But if that's where you're from, maybe it's not as huge an endeavor as I'm making it out to be. But that sounds like a huge life change that's really inconvenient. So I want to know if Canadians in America are actually considering leaving. And have you seen support from your American community or witnessed anything that surprised you, good or bad? Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I had Canadian friends here in America that like lived around here, I'd be like, don't worry, we'll protect you. They're not gonna get you. It's like I don't know who they are. I don't. Let's be honest. It's not like. Well, I gotta be careful here with exactly what I say because my first instinct is to say, we're not at the point where the U.S. government is like coming for Canadians here and trying to, capture you and imprison you. But then again, I've read several stories about, people being deported. Just a week or two ago, I did a video about a Canadian woman who was detained in America for 12 days, like against her will, eventually set free. So there's genuine scary things going on here. I'll admit that for sure. So, but for the most part, I think Canadians leaving America, if you want to leave America and go back to Canada, it's mostly just because you're sick of the rhetoric and the threats and all of that, which is totally understandable. So this person says, it's a Canadian. They say, I've been living in Seattle, so Seattle, Washington, Washington the state, not Washington, D.C., for the last 8.5 years or so on a green card. Seattle is a very, and by the way, I know Donald Trump has said stuff about green cards and immigrants who are not yet American citizens technically, and he said stuff recently about that that's like very concerning, where it's like you're just because you have a green card doesn't mean you should feel totally safe that that you can't be sent home. If I think he said, like, if you do one wrong thing, that's grounds for deporting you or something like that. I'm paraphrasing a bit, not a direct quote, but something, it's troubling stuff. Seattle is a very left-leaning place, and all of my American friends are feeling about the same as I am about almost everything. Sure, so it does depend on where you live in the United States. If you live in I think most of the cities in the United States are pretty liberal, Seattle included. So I think you'll find people there actively willing to campaign with you against Trump and the anti-Canada rhetoric from our government. I'm sure you can go form a protest there if you want. I'm sure. So if you're into that, that might be a good place for a Canadian to be. I get this person certainly seems to feel supported in Seattle. I get asked constantly if they can move to Canada with me. I'm laughing, but it's not even supposed to be a joke. It's the Americans in Seattle are like, can we, if you're going, take me with you, please. I think if you're a Canadian living in other parts of the United States, maybe you won't feel as supported, or like there might be not as many politically motivated people, but I don't think like I'm in Indiana, and Indiana as a state has usually been a Republican state, a conservative state, and it's not like people here are like those Canadians. Let's tariff them. Let's send them home. It's not like that at all, by the way, just so you know. It's just mostly that people don't really talk about Canada or care about the Canadian-American relationship, and which is bad, but it's not an active disdain for Canadians. Nothing even close to that. Most Americans, if they ran into a random Canadian, would be very, very excited and be like, whoa, you're from where? What's it like? It'd be more like that. Truthfully. I get so people asking this Canadian if they can leave with them. They're jealous of me having an out to leave easily and go back to Canada. I know a lot of people exploring citizenship ties to any country they might have ties to. Oh my God. Yeah, so that's what it's like in Seattle or more liberal U.S. cities, I guess. Like Americans literally kind of on the same boat as Canadians, basically saying, God, is there anywhere I can go to get out of the United States? They're actually jealous of the Canadians that can leave America and go to another country. When it comes to the tariffs, Trump's talk of annexing Canada, I feel less support. And I'm not surprised by that, by the way. It's what I just was talking about. Most Americans, I think, just don't have any kind of feelings towards the threats to Canada, because we're not Canada. And I'm not saying that we completely lack empathy, but it's just this situation where, as a country, we're not under threat, or we don't feel like we are, even though we're hurting ourselves. Americans don't feel under threat. We don't feel like anyone's taking us over. We're the ones doing the threatening. And Canadians are the ones under threat. So I think a lot of Americans, just because they're in this position of where they don't feel like it affects them, so they don't care. For as sad as that is, most people seem to think it's a joke. Yeah, a lot of Americans just think Trump is trolling. And I've done a couple of videos now talking about, is Trump trolling about Canada being the 51st state and taking Canada. And I've slowly moved from, I am an American who completely thought Trump was totally trolling. And I have moved to, I think he really does want Canada to become part of America. There's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt he's actively wanting to hurt Canada. I still don't think we're anywhere in the realm of taking over Canada by military force. I still don't believe that. But I've changed my mind on a lot of things about this, so we'll see. But most Americans think the whole thing's a joke. And if you were to rank it on things that are going on right now that Americans care about, they want to find something to laugh at, and unfortunately, Canadians are an easy target. I don't know if Americans are. Well, when this stuff makes the American news, like Trump wants Canada to be the 51st state, and calling Trudeau the governor of Canada, and trolling, and that makes some Americans laugh, I suppose, at Canada's expense, sure. In their own defense, people are really just waking up to see their country being torn apart. I think they're quick to point out they didn't vote for Trump, so don't point anger at them. Okay. So they're saying it's overwhelming, I'm ready to leave. But it's complicated uprooting your life. That's exactly what I thought. Like, so this Canadian's ready to leave, but moving your whole life is like very, very hard. And you really do not want to do that. American friends are just as overwhelmed. And the Canada thing is just a side story to Americans that have bigger things in their mind. I totally agree with that. I think that's a really, really accurate analysis of what a lot of Americans are feeling. So I'm a Canadian. I feel mostly annoyed. Do I think anything significant will happen? Probably not. But I'm pretty sick of our country's name coming out of that MFer's mouth. He breeds hate, and that's the worst part. This mostly annoyed. Do I think any... Okay. So, this seems like a pretty reasonable point of view. Very annoying. If you're a Canadian living in America, you really... It's going to take a lot for you to quit your job and uproot your whole life. So you're feeling very, very annoyed. That makes sense. Do you really think anything's going to happen? Probably not. Like, that's what I'm saying, is Trump's going to do everything probably legally within his power to encourage Canada to join the United States. But will anything like by force? We can debate what force means, but I usually think of military force. Are we going to take over Canada? No, probably not. So for this Canadian, it sounds like they're just kind of sticking it out in America. And if they wait, 4 more years, it'll be a new administration in the White House, a new leadership, and maybe they can just go on with their lives and not be so annoyed. I'm pretty sick of our country's name coming out of Donald Trump's mouth. That's totally understandable. And he breeds hate. That's totally understandable, especially if you're a Canadian. My God. My God. I mean, Americans don't think about if another country said and did half of what we've done. If another country did this stuff to us, to America, suddenly this would be the most important thing in our entire life. We would all be in an uproar, riots, like wanting to go to war against this other country. If another country's prime minister or president said, Americans, vote for me to be your leader, it would be front page news. It would be the biggest news, and it'd be the biggest thing in a lot of Americans' life. And so just because that's what a lot of Americans don't realize, that's what Canadians are feeling. Like, that's what happened. And a lot of Americans don't know that or want to know that or have the empathy to understand that. I'm not living in America, but I was just in Seattle at a cheerleading competition. And my family was not comfortable. Oh, how so? Just around the hotel and the convention center where the competition was held, I heard more MAGA stuff than I ever thought I would. Oh, even in Seattle. Granted, it wasn't the proverbial Midwest diner of boomers, but over the course of a couple mornings at a hotel breakfast buffet, talk about a good spot to maybe hear some dumb stuff at the hotel buffet. You probably hear some crazy stuff there. I heard Americans complaining about food prices, complaining about gas prices, DEI, annexation, tariffs, etc., as people agreed with whatever Fox was saying. Of course, they blamed. Okay, very political. We're getting very political here. Um, but I'm not surprised. At the same time, I'm not surprised. Like, there's obviously a lot of Americans who are like this, for sure. Although, like, the first 100 days of Trump's presidency are over. There's been all these analysis and people like that I watch on YouTube and the news or whatever that were kind of neutral on Trump. And like, what I'm trying to say is most like rational people in America are not happy with Trump and what he's done in his first 100 days, whether that's to Canada or the rest of the world or what it's doing to the American economy or whatever. Pick your reason. Most are. It doesn't matter your political affiliation. He's just been hurting Americans, no matter like what your political stance. Like we're just all Americans, and most of us feel like, what the hell's going on here? Like this has not been good. Um, and his approval rating was only like 40%, which is just, I think that's a record low, like just abysmal. Canadian living in Texas. Oh, bless your heart. Talking to people here, about 25% of Canada. What? Hold on. Hold on. Talking to the people in Texas, there's about 25% of the Americans in Texas that think Canada was already a state? What? What? I know Americans have a stereotype of being ignorant, especially to the world and what's going on, but this is a level of stupidity that is shocking to even me. Like, 1 out of 4 Texans think Canada was a state. They think Canada is a U.S. state. 25%. I don't like this is making me upset because I do not want to believe this is true because that is scary if that is true. This is their anecdotal kind of experience, but okay, like I'll take them at their word. 25% think Canada is in Europe. Oh my God. Oh my God. What even? These people are allowed to vote? The rest don't care. That's, I've been seeing a lot of that, the not caring. Haven't had a single person show the slightest concern. Canada might as well be Greenland to them. It could be Antarctica. Well, even before all of this craziness between America and Canada, like years ago, for as long as I can remember, Americans have not really understood or really known or cared much about Canada and Canadian culture. They will not be diverted from the issue of trans teens and volleyball. To that, I'll say there are certainly a lot of issues in the United States that Americans care more about than Canada and what we've been doing to Canada. That is true. That sounds accurate. I'm a Canadian nurse, currently on my first travel assignment in Texas. Texas? Why are you all in Texas? This is supposed to be the start of my travel nursing journey in the United States, but it will also be the end. I have 4 weeks in my assignment. I can't wait to leave. What Trump has done in the last couple weeks disgusts me, and I have no desire to support the United States in any way. I get it. I get it. I mean, any American who isn't completely appalled, horrified, frightened, or concerned about what's happening to their government and country. No, like, you have to understand. Most Americans voted for this. You have to understand that, first of all. So there's already going to be that internal bias of most Americans, if you voted for Donald Trump, which again is the majority, it's very difficult to admit to yourself you may have been wrong about something, or that what I'm really trying to say is there's some things Trump that has done that he promised on the campaign trail that have been like okay, like securing the southern border in the United States. Like that was the number one complaint from Americans and probably why Trump was elected. He did secure the southern border. I'll give him that. There's things he's done. But as an American, to not come to terms and admit that, strictly speaking, he has caused irreparable damage to America, our economy, our reputation, that's kind of one of the biggest ones for me personally. Putting politics aside, just the damage to our reputation as a country. Like, that's something you can't even quantify how bad that is. So, Americans, whether they voted for Trump or not, to not acknowledge that there are some things happening here that are just not good for us. Like, just objectively not good for Americans. To not acknowledge that is really quite silly. Very silly. And foolhardy. And it's not even in your own self-interest, frankly. I don't know. Maybe Trump will surprise us all and really turn this around with the tariff master plan that he promised. Doesn't look like it. Sure doesn't. But we're not so far. Yeah, without getting too political about it, that's kind of my thoughts on that. It was really cool to hear some thoughts from Canadians living in America, because that's a unique position to be in. And for a lot of these Canadians here, it felt like they're uncomfortable. And of course you are. It makes all the sense in the world. You must feel like you're living, like maybe America was starting to feel like home to you. Now it just probably feels like a foreign nation that's out to get you. Of course that's what it feels like, because that's what's happening. So a lot of these Canadians here, I think in general, the consensus was Canadians in America feel angry, uncomfortable. A lot of them are annoyed that they feel like they want to leave, and leaving is it's a hassle. Some of them are going to do it, and I'm not shocked, frankly. So, really interesting perspective to hear about. Not a perspective I get to hear about much as an American. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, especially if you're Canadian and especially if you're a Canadian living in America. What do you think about all this? That'd be very interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, excuse me, me reacting to Canada and learning about Canadian culture and seeing Canadian things I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.